Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. Today's another AMA episode. That is, Ask Me Anything. I love to answer your questions. If you have a question you think is going to be of broad interest, send it in. I'll answer it live on the air. Send your questions to victor@victorjm.com. That's victor@victorjm.com. Searching through the archives of questions, this one comes from Tammy in Longview, Texas. She's asking about the Killeen, Texas market. Killeen is about 30 minutes north of Austin, Texas, and wondering what I think of Killeen as a market. Well, Tammy, that's a great question. Killeen is a very active town. It's about 30 minutes north of the very vibrant Austin, Texas. It's much more affordable, and one of the major employers is the U.S. Army. The Fort Hood base is in Killeen, and it's a very active military base. People from Fort Hood have seen active deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan, and numerous other theaters around the world. While military towns can be active and vibrant, I'm not a huge fan of them for investment purposes. I absolutely support our military and the huge sacrifices that the individuals, the men and women that are enlisted in the Army, make on a day-to-day basis. But as a real estate investor, you're in a very vulnerable position. If one of your tenants deploys to a new location, you have to let them out of their lease. This is something that can happen at any time. You might have signed a 12-month lease, but they could leave on 2 weeks' notice. When you have a large-scale deployment, finding new tenants to take over that space is extraordinarily difficult. Since the end of the Cold War, there have been over 350 base closures across the United States. Same is true in Germany, Italy, France, Canada. All major Western countries have experienced major base closures since the end of the Cold War. You could be literally one election or one policy change away from having a major base closure, and now you are still on the hook. You're on the hook with your investors, you're on the hook with the lender, and you own a property that you cannot rent and a property that you cannot easily sell. It represents a huge destruction of value. Your town might have a major military presence, and you might be thinking it's way too big for it to shut down. Well, it's probably the case the Pentagon is not going anywhere anytime soon. But a base can shut down, doesn't matter what the size. I'm currently located in Lorient in France, home of the largest naval installation on the Atlantic Ocean. This particular naval base had 11,000 enlisted people and employed 42,000 people in total, about a quarter of the population of the town. That base shut down in 1997. Over 20 years later, the town is still recovering from the base and from the shipyard closures. Modern military is much more mobile than it used to be in the past. They can deploy much more rapidly, and the geographic locations of protecting a valley or protecting a seaport are not nearly as important as they used to be. From the days of the Vietnam War until the 1980s, the U.S. military closed down over 550 military installations around the world. As a real estate investor, you are very vulnerable to a single policy change affecting your livelihood. So for that reason, I'm not a fan of investing in communities where the military is a dominant employer. As you perform your market due diligence, pay close attention to the military exposure in your local economy. What would be the impact if that base was to shut down or be reduced in scale significantly? Thank you, Tammy, for a great question. As you think about that, have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.